So, Dr. Ayize, we are super excited about the Montessori Everywhere event, which is going to take place on the 30th of August, where we'll be celebrating Dr. Montessori's 150th birthday, and we'll be connecting Montessorians around the world. Now, the event is free of charge, but everyone can donate before and during and after the event, with all funds raised going to the Black Montessori Education Fund. You're the co-founder of the BMEF, so can you tell us a little bit more about it and what's its vision? Why was it set up?
Yes, well, thank you so much for taking time to, do this interview. And yes, I am extremely excited for this event that's coming up on August the 30th. However, what I have experienced as an educational researcher is that many within the Black community, unfortunately, are not familiar with Montessori education. In fact, years ago, I helped to start a Montessori public charter school in Washington, D.C. And when I was actually recruiting families, I talked to one Black family and they said, "Oh, Montessori? No, those are those schools for Latin children. That's not for us." And I'm like, Latin children, like Latinx children, like where are you? And so again, many in the community don't even know about Montessori education because for so long, when Montessori education comes to the U.S., even in fact, when Dr. Montessori came to the U.S., she was sponsored by the wealthy and the well-to-do, right? So you get Rockefellers, Carnegie's funding Dr. Montessori's visit to the United States itself. And then because they realized the genius of this educational system, they pretty much co-opted. And so Montessori education in the U.S. for the majority of time that it's been here in the U.S. has been relegated to the wealthy and the well-to-do. And so for so long, you had to have literally $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to send your primary school child to a Montessori education. And many in the Black community didn't have those resources to do that. And so for a long time, that economic barrier, that cost has kept so many folk out of Montessori education, and it wasn't even an option for many Black families. And if it's not an option for many Black families, then it wouldn't even be a thought for a child to think about, oh, I'm gonna become a Montessori teacher when I grow up, if they didn't even know about Montessori education as a child. And so not only is it been inaccessible because of cost for many Black families, it's been also inaccessible because folk weren't even exposed to it in terms of their career path. And so not only for the children, not only for the adults who want to become Montessori educators, but even for the educational research community, Montessori education and its impact on the Black community has been, there really isn't much research that's been written about it because, again, it has not been open to many folk in the Black community because of that economic barrier. And so it's really like a domino effect of why it's not been why the Black community hasn't been engaged in Montessori education. But I'll let you in on a secret. In fact, I found some evidence. This came from one of a Montessori trainer, Jamie Rue. She's actually an AMI Montessori elementary trainer. And her husband, who is a researcher, found evidence of Black folk being aware of Montessori in 1912. Before Dr. Montessori had even visited the United States, there is evidence of Black folk already aware of Montessori education. Fast forward that to in the 1940s and 50s, Mary McLeod Bethune, the famed Black educator who helped to establish Bethune-Cookman University, was also aware of Montessori education. And so there have been some blades of grass that broke through, the Black community's unaware or lack of knowledge about Montessori education. However, by and large, that economic factor has been a barrier. So long story short, the Black Montessori Education Fund is looking to break down that barrier. We are looking to get more Black families, more Black children into Montessori schools. We are aiming to really establish a pipeline so that we can get Black adults who are interested in becoming Montessori teachers or guides to build this pipeline so that we can have more Black Montessorians. We want to build a pipeline so that we have more educational researchers to do research on the impact of Montessori on the Black community, Montessori education, as well as what is the lived experience of those Black teachers, of those Black families engaged in Montessori education. And so the BMEF is here to break down those barriers, to help to funnel some more money to those Black families, to those Black adults who are interested in becoming Montessori educators, as well as to educators to do Montessori research on what's happening in the Black experience. And if there are even some Black Montessorians who've been in Montessori education for a number of years who are interested in starting schools, we want to even help to funnel resources to them so that they can get some schools established in Black communities so that we can have this Montessori method exposed and helping to foster the development of more Black and brown children.
That sounds amazing, and I really applaud this initiative, and because I think it's fairly recent, right? It's when were you born? When was the BMEF born?
Yeah, so we literally just launched last month in July. So myself, I've been in Montessori education for over a decade now. Even when I was in undergrad school, myself and some colleagues, we started an early childhood school, fresh out of undergrad. We were still, green behind the ears, but we knew we wanted to make a difference working with children. And so that school was not a Montessori school, but it was Montessori inspired, as Jeff Bezos might say. So it was Montessori inspired. And then later, I met a beautiful woman who was convinced that Montessori was the way to transform the world. She said Montessori is the way to revolutionize things. And so we had a chance to work with some educational leaders in Washington, D.C. to start a school. And she said, there's no better way to go than Montessori. And so, I was already Montessori inclined, but she helped to, hit me over the head and say, that's definitely the way we had to go. And in fact, I was convinced when my son, my wife is a Montessori guide. In fact, she's trained on all Montessori levels. That's how convinced she is that Montessori is the way to transform the world. At her school, we were fortunate because she was a teacher at the school. Our children can go and we didn't have to pay. So that was a huge benefit. And I went to actually an open house experience where my child walked me through some of the things that he was learning, and I was blown away. And I said, yes, I am convinced. I was bit with the Montessori bug. I drank the Kool-Aid, and I said, man, this is the way to really transform education. And then fast forward that to the death of George Floyd here in the United States. And I was enraged at what happened with Brother Floyd, not only because of what happened with him, but because even when I was in undergraduate school, I literally remember when the 4 police officers beat Rodney King there in Los Angeles, and they got off scot-free without any repercussions of beating this man. And, fast forward from Rodney King to George Floyd, is a little more than 20 years. And I've been trying to work to make it better, but to see that my children have to experience the death of George Floyd, folk, getting, totally enraged and burning things down was literally like a deja vu, because that's exactly what happened with Rodney King. And so that nothing has changed, that this stuff continues to happen. And if you go back maybe another generation, maybe my ancestors were upset like that with Emmett Till, who was brutally murdered also, and so again, that these things just keep happening, to me, is just mind-boggling. And so as I went down with one of my sons, he was scheduled to speak at a Black Lives Matter protest in DC. I went down with him and literally, saw the pain on, my people's face. And I really thought to myself, well, Ayize, you just finished grad school, you have this doctorate degree, you have some connections with folk in high places and Montessori organizations. What you going to do now to make a difference? And it was at that moment that the spirit really just pricked my heart and said, maybe you can help to start a fund so that Black folk don't have to keep going through these hurtful, harmful experiences. And maybe you could do something that can actually help to bring some healing to the great harm that is going before our nation right now. And so this was my small effort to try and bring some healing to the Black community by exposing them to, Montessori education, which I think, again, can help do great good in this world.
Absolutely. Well, Montessori did say that establishing lasting peace is the work of education, didn't she? And that all that politics can do is keep us out of war. And I think, what you're doing is just phenomenal. And so looking ahead, what are you hoping, what are you hoping to achieve? What do you see in your crystal ball in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, if folk are interested, they can make a $150 donation to the Black Montessori Education Fund in honor of Dr. Maria Montessori's, 150th birthday. And we have launched $1 million campaign to raise $1 million so that we can have more Black adults to be able to become Black Montessori education, teachers. And again, that is really important because now within the United States, there's been a movement to get these public schools, publicly funded schools that can use the Montessori approach. And so here in Washington, D.C., from the time when my wife and I opened our Montessori public charter school, that was maybe 8 years ago, you literally have had a multiple of other public charter Montessori schools open up in DC alone. And so the number of publicly funded Montessori spaces in Washington, DC has astronomically increased. And so with that comes a greater diversity of Black and brown children now being exposed to Montessori education, which is great. However, what we also need is an equal proportional number of Black adults to be Montessori educators. Absolutely. So that those children can have teachers who look like them, yes, who come from their community, who might know some of the things that they might be experiencing and how to deal with those things. And so we are trying to proportionally get Black Montessori educators. In fact, I'm on the board for the Washington Montessori Institute, and the Washington Montessori Institute, which is the oldest AMI Montessori training institute in the United States, we continually get requests from some of these school leaders. Can you send us Black and brown Montessori teachers? Where are the Black and brown? We don't have enough of them. And so what we are trying to do right now is build a strategic partnership with a historically Black college there in Washington, D.C. We're trying to build a strategic partnership between the Washington Montessori Institute and Howard University, which is a world, premier historically Black college. And if we are able to do that, that would be a game changer so that we can erect a pipeline to have more Black and brown Montessori educators. And so again, what I am envisioning is us raising, $1 million, to some, shoot, Jeff Bezos probably made that in the time that we've even been talking on.
Yeah.
Right? And so
oh, to be so lucky.
Right? $1 million is not that much to some folk. And so if we can raise the $1 million, then we can help to provide scholarships to those Black Montessori would-be adults who want to become Black Montessori teachers. And so what I'm envisioning is raising $1 million, helping to fund a generation of Black adults who want to become Montessori educators. I'm envisioning helping to start some Black Montessori schools that can be independent and operating and doing the things that they understand will help their children and their community to succeed. What I'm envisioning is helping to fund some Montessori research around how Montessori is impacting the Black community. And so in my mind, these funds will go to help transform education in that way.
I really, I know you will reach your 1 million, and I hope you go way beyond your 1 million and make this difference. I can't wait for the Montessori Everywhere event. I encourage everyone to donate whatever they can. $150 would of course be brilliant, particularly because it connects so well with the Montessori 150th birthday. But obviously any donations would be gratefully received. Thank you so much, Dr. Ayize. It was so interesting to hear about the origin of the BMEF and to hear about the position of the Black children in education and Montessori education, and to hear your dreams and hopes and what the future is going to look like. And I hope that will happen. I embrace it, and I am behind you in full solidarity.
If folks want to find out more information about the Black Montessori Education Fund, it's just that. It is the website, www.blackmontessorieducationfund.org. You can find out some more information about us, but we're really excited about, August the 30th, about this 12-hour global event. We're going to have a party for 12 hours. And we have phenomenal dynamos that are lined up, some workshops, some panels, some make and take activities. It is really shaping up to be a phenomenal event, and you really don't want to miss it. And
Absolutely.
So again, please consider joining us on August the 30th. 12 hours, we're going to be celebrating and having a great time and raising funds for a great cause.
Absolutely.
So again, please check us out, blackmontessorieducationfund.org. If you have any questions, you want to send us anything, please consider donating, $150 in honor of Dr. Montessori's 150th birthday. And again, we're looking right now in this period where we are in an unprecedented time with this pandemic that is causing so many things to be shut down, so many things to be done in a new way. We have an opportunity before us to reimagine what education can look like.
Absolutely.
We have right now this opportunity to go ahead and transform what has been done before. And so if you believe that we can build something better, something brighter, then join us on August the 30th for Montessori Everywhere, as we are celebrating Dr. Maria Montessori's 150th birthday. But even better than just celebrating her birthday, we are re-envisioning and helping to transform education to be better than it has been in ever before. So join us in that pursuit to build a better and brighter day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.